Hello and welcome to the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. The boys are back again at 9 a.m. on a Thursday, a couple hours after our normal podcasting time, which makes us feel more rested to talk about today's topic, which is the transfer portal. Yes, the transfer portal has taken a hold of college basketball. It's free agency, Jim. It's madness, Matthew. And we're going to talk about winners, losers, recap who did well in the power leagues, and of course shine a little light on the mid-majors down there at the bottom in the middle of the country. And then, of course, we'll finish off with our favorite fits and our least favorite fits. Before that, Matthew, hello, how are you with your boring white background? How are you
Good,
doing?
great, wonderful. Good, great, wonderful. Yeah, my flare is currently in transition mode. So very sad. As I look at
You
myself
would
in the
get a
Zoom
talking to
camera,
at Shenanigans. You would get a
yeah,
talking to if you worked
I
there.
don't think you should wear the minimum. Some people choose to go above and beyond with their flare. Kai, I'm at the below minimum threshold. Hey, let's talk Portal Combat, Jim. Of note, the combat games are not over. So I wonder if there's a chance, like if we redid this in like 2 months, that we might have a few extra inclusions or omissions. Probably not. I think it's depth season in the Portal Combat. So I think it's a good time to do this podcast. But with the caveat that there may be some interesting late ads, and of course some of the international guys are still lingering as well.
Yeah, I don't count the international guys
They
in
don't
the
really count
portal,
though, I
so
guess.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna stiff arm them right now. I don't think there's any like big time contributors to a power conference team left in the portal. We were trying to wait till that was the moment. It's a lot to every week be like, here's the huge movements that happened, the guys that entered, the guys that committed. So we like to let the dust settle. That's kind of where we're at right now. Maybe we'll see another couple of poachings, Kai, where teams who desperately need a guy at a specific spot behind the scenes drop a bag to somebody and get them out of their current commitment.
Mhm.
But I do think we're about 99% settled on power conference teams and their rotations from the portal.
I'm looking at
Yes.
your roster sheet, Jim, where you have your portal guys rankings. Yeah, the guys left are like a couple of nice players, but not gonna move the needle, really.
Yeah.
It's nice for us because we're starting preview season. We're going to write all 360 whatever teams this year, along with Will Warren. The great Will Warren is going to help us out. We're going to release all those previews through the Discord site once again. The Burner, a fantastic community of college basketball goodness, uh, led by Trilly Donovan himself, the masked man, if you will. We are having many interviews this offseason in their AMAs, Ask Me Anythings. And Matthew's done a great job of leading those. He led an interview the other day with Dan Earl, which was fantastic. The Chattanooga head coach, Andy Toole, was able to figure out technology because he's a young guy, and he gave us a great text AMA the other day. And we have Richie Riley coming into the Discord today. A lot of
Great.
good guests tonight. A lot of good guests lined up. Bart Torvik's coming in there. So really a great opportunity, I think, to sign up for the Discord, join the community, get the off-season goodness and all the interviews and all the college basketball content you can handle. And of
Yeah, we're
course,
trying to
Well
get
said.
yes,
some more mid-major coaches, especially coaches that like had, breakthrough years last year. I think Andy Toole and Richie Raleigh both have compelling stories, especially if we can get some of the young guns to do the text AMA, which is cool. You get to actually ask coaches questions and they get to answer them directly as opposed to have Maddie moderator butcher your question or just ignore your question altogether. But those are still fun too, kind of interviews. So yeah, join. It's cool. More coaches to come. Just try not to overload it during the NBA finals. I feel bad some folks will have to be multitasking tonight, but hey, maybe that'll be a good thing. So we
yeah,
Yeah.
shall see.
yeah, 3MW underscore CBB. That's Twitter. That's Instagram. Follow us there. Do subscribe to the podcast. And like I said, we are live right now on YouTube. If you feel like watching us on video, those videos are always available. And you can join us live if you feel so inclined. In the mornings, usually on Thursday and Friday. We will tweet out the schedule. Okay, that's house cleaning. That's the intro. We're going to get to transfer winners and losers. But first, of course, we're going to head to Roots Roundup for some news and notes.
Let's do it, Kai. Little ruse roundup, newts and notes. We're talking newts, apparently. That's new today.
Big
But Matthew, before
news.
we get there, a shout out to CBB Analytics, one of our Bibles of off-season resources that we use basically daily.
That's right. And if you're not a member yet, you should already be that. But you're going to see a good, great, a tangible exhibit of how awesome some of these shot charts and visuals and stats that they have. Nick is actually going to partner with us on our top 100 player rankings. We're going to have some cool visuals along with our very well curated, infallible list of the 1 through 100 ranking of players. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Join the Discord and you'll get to see all the goods that we're going to drum up there from CB Analytics. But yeah, make sure you sign up today, guys. They have, as we've said, they've been a Bible for us as we start our previews, breaking down a lot of coaches and shot charts from last year. And I continue to harp on how cool it is that they have the D2 and D3 guys, which are becoming more and more a part of this this college landscape. And you can also slot in multiple players side by side to see their shot charts, to see how they fit. We talk fit today. I was doing that a little bit last night. So yeah, it's awesome. Join. Use our promo code WEAVE, WEAVE, for a $40 off subscription. And coaches, let us know directly if you want. We'll get you Holy Grail access to the pro tier. Jim?
Yes, sir. Well said, Matthew. Okay, news and notes, and maybe a little bit about newts as well. Our big key headline, the realignment of the sport continues with Sacramento State and Mike Bibby joining the Big West in 2026. Kai, that also means Shaq, Big Diesel, Big Aristotle is the GM of a Big West team out there on the West Coast. Not really on the coast, Sacramento, but this one's kind of insignificant to me. Definitely football fueled. The fun part is now they're in the same conference as their crosstown rival, UC Davis.
Yeah, I don't get this because Big West doesn't have football, so I don't know. Like, Big Sky is a great league. We want the Pac-12. We want the Mountain West. Okay, we'll take the Big West. That's Sacramento State, baby. The art of the deal.
Yeah, there are going to be some good stories coming out about them. Their AD is kind of a Looney Tunes guy, so I think there's just I think there'll be a fun. This school will appear many more times, I think, on Roots Roundup going forward. That's my prediction. Next 3 years, you will hear about
making headlines. Good, exciting. Coaching news: Marshall extended Cornelius Jackson through 2030, and you might say, "Weave, do you really talk about every mid-major coaching extension?" No, we don't. But this one is notable because he got a 2-year deal after he replaced Mike D'Antoni. I think we didn't give the hire all that great of reviews in our coaching hire grades last offseason, but Jackson did pretty solid in his first season, did well at Marshall. It was an interim promotion after firing or forcing D'Antoni out. So we didn't love that, but it worked out well, Kai, and he's going to be there for a couple of years to come.
Yes, if we went back to our grades, Jim, I do think we were a little bit down. I will say they were better than I expected last season. That's how I will summarize his first year.
Yes. Congratulations to Marshall on that. The Thundering Herd. Kai, we're excited for the tournament, which features Herd That, one of the more notable
TBT.
Squads of that event. Yep, TBT. All right, next up on the news slate, transfers. It'll end recruits. There aren't any recruits to discuss at this time of the year. 2025 is basically all done. I believe one top 100 recruit did just recently decommit from Ohio State, Dorian Jones, but we'll report on where he heads as soon as he decides. 2026, we're going to wait a little bit longer before we start going through all those guys. Transfers, we're talking on the portal today. And injuries, guys. We typically don't touch on this section in the offseason, which is good. We think injuries should be toggled off in the sport for pretty much the entire year. But we have a couple in the Big Ten. First, Caleb Glenn, done for the year for Michigan State with a torn patellar tendon. Not great here. Mr. Cox, Michigan State's strength last year was kind of their come at you in waves, defensive strength. Glenn was supposed to help the perimeter shooting, and now it's a little bit dire for them. They're going to need some real contributions from freshmen that are very unproven.
I got to think that they're going to sign someone else in the portal. I feel like at this point with the depth I'm looking at, it looks a little thin. And
but who helps you in the portal?
No, you're not going to get another. You're going to have a downgrade from Glenn. But I think they need another body because they're going to be trotting 3 or 4 freshmen off the pine. And like depth was the whole thing that made them awesome last season. Like they had depth for days. They could have used like 1 or 2 of those bigs from last year's team on this year's team. And this year, I feel like they're it's a different look. It's a very different look.
Yeah, we'll talk portal with Michigan State. Not great. Not great.
Yeah. Yikes. And the other Big Ten injury, Ty Rodgers of Illinois. We don't know the exact extent of this one, but the rumors and the whispers are not great. Potentially out for the season. I know that Illinois fans in the Discord are kind of already starting to think about how do we replace this guy? What do we need in the rotation? Kai, don't they just have an unlimited supply of Balkan dudes to throw on the roster? Like,
Yes,
why are you even worried about
that's
this?
how I understood it, Jim. But I would have to check with Champagne.
Yeah, it's like when you're playing a or not role playing game, real time strategy computer game. You're just like, all right, just spawn a new dude, just create a new one at your factory of rotation players. You'll be okay, Illinois. Rogers is fun. It just sucks to see it happen to a guy that like sat out last season with the
Yeah, I
same
agree.
program, did not transfer, redshirted, kind of took the humble pie piece and was like, I'll be a big piece in 25, 26. So yeah, that bummed me out. Other random news and notes. New Haven, Matthew, the new
Mm.
team to Division One, is hosting Penn State in their Division One home opener on November 8th. This is shocking. A low major type that's getting a P5 school to come to town. Shout out to Mike Rhodes, but it is risky as hell to be doing this for such a big occasion for New Haven.
No, I love it. Good move by Rhodes. I know it's, some people are going to say it's just stupid, but I think you can acknowledge maybe it's not the smartest move, but just, at some point, let's start to open up the power conference. The haves need to start giving some charity to the have-nots. Go take a trip or two, folks, on the road. There should be a mandate you have to play at least X number of road games to teams in a certain level or lower. I just think it's part of like the how can we balance out? We talk about some of the buyouts or some of the payment transfers when you're taking transfers up. I think this is another way where you could get some try and get some equilibrium. Not that there's ever going to be true equality, but just something nice. I think this is a good gesture by Rhodes. Good move. Good guy move.
Yeah, I definitely wish there was a mandate and a rule that said you have to play a true mid-major road game every season outside of the top five conferences or something for Power Five scheduling. But alas, that will probably never come to be unless Three Man Weave is made collective czar of the
Mm,
sport. So we're hoping maybe
shortly.
someday, but the offer's not quite on the table yet. The money's not there. We're still demanding more. And then Kai, the Yukon MTE has been announced. New Haven staying in Roots Roundup here.
Oh yeah.
UConn host they're not the only school that's doing this, host I think Duke does this every year with three mid-major, well major programs. But UConn's MTE is New Haven, Columbia, and UMass Lowell. And it's notable, Kai, because the MTE portion of the calendar did not go well for the Huskies last year.
Yeah.
So Dan Hurley's gonna stay in stores and not have to worry about going to Maui and losing three straight.
The what's the incentive here, fellas? Am I just missing something?
I think you can play like 28 games total, but you can play 30
We
if
do MTs.
if you have their MTE. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is kind of like getting under the loophole, and it's not really even a loophole. It's just designed to incentivize playing more of these games.
Okay. Yeah, that's a loophole.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm not gonna like heavy razz UConn because Hurley's schedule beyond this is really good,
Yeah.
and he's playing some true home and homes with P5s, and they've got some. I think they play BYU in Boston or something like that. Some good neutral sites. So not gonna fully drag him, but man, it just hurts when a big brand like this sits out it just completely sits out the MTE portion of the year. Like we don't need that. It's not a part of our brand anymore. We don't need the tournament, and that hurts Feast Week, and we love Feast Week. Maybe not to bet on Matthias as it's erratic, but we do love it as a concept, just a viewer all day basketball.
Are these three schools getting paid by UConn? I assume that's part of the arrangement,
I also
correct?
assumed that, Matthew. Yes, but
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
like
know.
generally kind of buy
Okay.
games.
Right,
That would be
right.
my estimate as well. I'm sure someone will correct us if we're wrong. Please do, but that is my understanding. Okay, Kai, that's
All
it for
right.
Roots Roundup. Short and sweet. It's nice when we have those kinds in the off season because we got a lot to get into with the main topic, the meat and potatoes.
Yes, the transfer recap. Also, shout out to Noah in the chat. Correct. As soon as Sacramento State moves to the Big West, UC Davis is actually moving out of the Big West, going to the Mountain West, I think, which is going to be super strange. So the rivals will not be in the same conference still, which
It's
is
lame.
pretty funny and also very lame. Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
Big West needs a stronghold in Sacramento, Kai.
They
So
do.
thank God they still have one.
Flagship program. They need one. Okay, yes. Transfer portal winners and losers. Probably not going to mention every single team, at least in like detail. So if you're uh, mad about not hearing your team, hey, reach out to us. We're pretty accessible. Discord, Twitter, let us know. We'll give you our opinion on your team. Uh, We're going to focus mainly on the big boys, the power schools, and because of course they are usually the winners of the portal. The mid majors, they don't get a lot of wins, unfortunately, in free agency. We will mention a few near the end of this slate, but first, focusing on the big boys. So, Jim, I like how we separated it here. The total rebuild division, the teams that are basically flipping their rosters. Of course, most of these have to do with coaching changes. That makes sense. Transfers follow their old coach, yada, yada. The winners of this division, I think you picked out some really good ones. I think NC State is maybe the biggest winner of this, tied with Iowa. Fantastic job. NC State and Iowa, going to start there. Will Wade and Ben McCollum, two of the best coaching hires, and they've already brought in two of the best portal flips in the country.
Yeah, and I think the NC State maybe secret sauce. We talked to our guy Benny Wisniewski, who might be coming on the show later in the offseason, that they got Andrew Slater as their GM, who's super well connected, and that really helps bring in players. Obviously, their NIL has to be there too, and they served up a big old offer to get Darian Williams to come to town. But you've got key pieces of winners with Arsenault, with Trey Holloman. Darian Williams was nearly in the Final Four, arguably the best player on that team. No, not arguably. JT Toppin was, but Williams is fantastic. So they loaded up, Matt, in addition to some of the guys that Wade brought with from McNeese. NC State, very clear winner to me. And yeah, Kai, we can get to Iowa in a second, but I think both of these schools immediately vaulted themselves into like top 25 level or even better right away with their rebuilds, kind of like Louisville last year.
Yep. Slater, I think, was with Sonny Wicks in Wyoming. He's like, you're right, Jim. Twitter basketball smart guys very much regard him as a sharp dude. I mean, NC State is just the universal winner of this offseason, right? Just like got an unreal coach upgrade, got a ton of great players, get all the mojo. We got shit talking Hubert Davis, Will Wade. So yeah, I think if there's any, like almost every other team, you could maybe make a nitpick or two in terms of fit or whatever. But I just think relative to what your starting point, which I think is part of this assessment process, like I think NC State's like it's hard to make any argument against that they didn't win in summer and win big.
So, Kai, are we allowed to fire a coach a year after he makes the Final Four? Does it work out okay?
Yes, you're allowed, Jim. Amazing. The balls. Good job, NC State. Way to have the gusto, the chutzpah to make this happen. Ironically, if Keats doesn't make that Final Four run, they probably fire him the year before and they don't get Will Wade. Sliding doors. Very crazy. College basketball. On Iowa's sense, obviously McCollum cheated a little bit by bringing in 5 of his former players from Drake, but one of them happens to be Bennett Sturtz, who is at minimum a top 20 player in the country this coming season. He is fantastic. Don't let his D2/Drake pedigree fool you. And then I think bringing in Brendan Housen is going to be perfect for McCollum's system. The guy is just a lights-out shooter. And also Matt's boy from Robert Morris, the player of the year in the Horizon, Alvaro, I'm going to mess up the last name, Fulgaris?
Fulgaris? Yes.
Okay.
Fulgaris, yeah.
So right. Iowa, clear winner, Matthew, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to count Iowa because I feel like there's just a lot of...
These are rebuild division, the rebuild division.
Fair. Yeah, no, it's just, he's sort of, he's bringing his guys mostly, and I think that's the crux of why it's such a... I mean, again, I'll say it, I think the Ben McCollum and Ben Sturtz, I am fascinated to see what McCollum does in a post-Sturtz era. I still believe he'll be a great coach, but it's hard to... I think people don't realize what like a special tandem those two have been for so long, and like they are... I don't know if you guys saw the McCollum highlights on Twitter where he's playing pickup. Like, dude, he looks like Ben Sturtz out there. Like, you can tell like those guys, he's good, right? Like, has like that change of pace stuff and like all the next level instinctual knowing angles, making right reads, and like the point guard is like so heavily dominant in his offense, and to have a guy that has basically done his system, I mean, that's just that nutshell pickup is like that's huge.
He won at least 3 national titles without Sturtz, I think. So
sorry. I feel like at this point, I'm not skeptical. I just think this is like an all-time special bond that like I think he will have some pressure, have to prove it after Sturtz leaves. And I think just for this year as an Iowa fan, it's like, wow, that's an awesome marriage that we get to ride with this season.
I will say, Kai, I don't think I'd have them as a winner if it was just the Drake guys coming. Like that would be like,
Fulgaris is a big
lifter.
This is a
team that was like 60th. But yeah, Housen I think is an upgrade on Mascari, and Mascari was really good. He's a clear fit for the same role. And then Fulgaris is awesome. Big fan. I think he translates up pretty well. I know Matt, our boy Nick Kalinowski's model, loves Fulgaris as an up transfer. So fitting him with a coach who knows how to deploy his players, put them in good spots. You get a skilled big to go with Manyao and Tavion Banks, the more physical, high effort type guys. I think that was home run slotting in dudes to fit with the Drake core,
Yep.
Yeah, he replaces Abreu, I think, for Drake last season.
who I
So
was not a fan of really.
Yeah, he was whatever.
Sticking in the Big Ten, a winner, Indiana. We're going to call a winner here. Flipped literally their entire program. Like nobody is back from last season. It's all transfers. It's a international guy. It's a freshman, and it's Darian DeVries. And he also cheated a little bit by bringing his son, who again is a top 20, 25 player in the country. Wow, convenient. And then he's got a bunch of mid-major guys, which I like a lot of these mid-major guys to the point where I'm going to call them a winner. You just kind of have to always worry, are they going to translate to this level? Are all of them going to translate in some respect? It's never a guarantee.
I had Indiana as a small winner. I don't think they are like as big winners of these other teams. I think it was a really nice job, but not like great.
Lower tier than NC State and Iowa.
Yeah, agree. In Virginia,
I had them as a question mark winner. You
also have Big Ten teams, Kai. I think your Jim, you said USC. I had USC and Washington as very clear winners. And again, I think maybe partially because of what last season looked like, but you can nitpick some of the fit stuff with both those teams. But I think accumulating depth is sometimes forgotten when people are discussing fit question marks. And especially with Sprinkle and Musselman, who is a pretty keen tinkerer, I'm okay with those coaches having guys who may not necessarily fit seamlessly, but that have a pretty good deep collection of dudes who you can see a puzzle coming together in some form. And I think USC and Washington both were pretty clear, like, okay, you guys are ready to play the Big Ten. Because last year you weren't, but this year it's like, all right, I see it.
Yeah, I guess Washington probably does fit in this department. Even they brought back Diallo and Kepnang, but it is basically flipping almost everything. And I certainly think they're a winner. I have them mentioned as a winner in a different portion of the outline here. But agreed, Matt. USC, I mean, they got the two top studs to top their roster with Rice and Baker Mazzara. But I love Kofi. I think Amarian Dickerson's going to be great there. Matt, even Ezra Osar looked pretty solid in the Big 12
And
last
I look
year.
better. I agree.
I wish they'd kept my guy Keontae Jones, the stud wing from CSUN, but it doesn't seem like he's going to play college hoops anymore. And the point guard situation's a little odd. Like Jordan Marsh doesn't really fit what I'm thinking with the Musselman team. But yeah, generally would say they're a winner. Indiana, if they had like taken whatever NIL they gave to the two North Florida guys and just given that to a rim protector, a big man that could own the glass, a little more athletic than having Reed Bailey be your center constantly. Maybe Sam Alexis is okay there, Kai, as the sort of centerpiece, but I wish they had a little more physicality and interior fortitude in the front line. But the offense is very intriguing to me, and I love Wilkerson specifically beyond just DeVries.
Yeah, USC, I reserve the right to be skeptical still. Musselman has gone from guarantee good flipping rosters of transfer guys to it seems like he's just accumulating players now and not really focused on fit. TBD on how this USC roster fits. Last year, I think we were across the board pretty skeptical and turned out to be infield zone year for him. This year, the talent is upgraded for sure at the guard spots with Rice and CBM, but I still have question marks on the overall productiveness of the roster.
Very fair. I thought about this myself. My take with Musselman is that he's always been, he's had enough talent to where even though like it was generally like a bumpy ride to get to March, and then he did the Eric Muscle March thing, he always had enough talent to win enough games to put himself in tournament position. Last year he didn't. This year he does. So I don't think they're going to be like a top 4 or 5 or 6 seed, but if they're like that 7-8 range, I think they have a pretty high upside. And I think by the time February, March comes around with all his lever pulling and button pushing, they're going to have a decent mix when it matters. But again, it could be kind of a small sample conclusion.
Yeah. Last year felt a little too mid-major all-star-y, and then like, I guess we'll play Claude at point guard because Claude wants to be point guard and I want a tall point guard. This year, I like the top end of the roster more, and I like some of the complimentary guys a little more too.
So we mentioned Virginia briefly. I will say they're a winner in terms of expectations from what they're going to get in the portal, given a brand new coach and given resources at Virginia in terms of NIL, which I assumed aren't very good. And
they say they have a lot more now. That's like the big push is suddenly they have money.
I think he did a really good job for what I perceived as what he had at his disposal. Another team that didn't bring anybody back. He brings in, mid-major transfers, but guys who I think can probably translate up, especially Malik Thomas from San Francisco. I think Jakari White has the ability, at least offensively, to score against power competition. We saw him absolutely decimate a couple teams in the non-con last year. And then I like Tillis and Sam Lewis from Toledo. So Virginia did a good job relative to expectations. Are they going to be a surefire top 25 team? I don't think so, but good job overall. Winner.
The big winner for me. I'm totally buying Virginia, and part of it is the two international front court pieces that are not a part of this discussion and this analysis, but I like both of them a good amount. And I just think like you've got the steady caretaker type point guard Dallin Hall, who you can squint and picture a little Max Shulga-esque, like he's not quite the shooter, but smart ball mover, has been a part of winners. I think that makes sense. They clearly leaned in on shooting with Lewis, even some of Tillis and Jakari White. And then Malik Thomas is like a stud. I mean, he was really good in a WCC that was not that far behind the ACC last year. I think he's going to be a productive player in that league, even with it slightly improving. So yeah, I'm in on Virginia.
Boy,
I Malik Thomas is one of my 5 better. We were doing our top player fits at the end of
Don't
this.
give this away yet.
Oh,
So
wow.
I wanted to say,
Hold
hey guys,
suspense.
stick around.
Okay.
My takes suck now. There'll be better ones coming. Malik Thomas is one of my like great fits. I just like seeing guys that go from a good coach to another good coach that play in modern concepts. That's not ball dominant, lots of pace, ball movement, action, that kind of stuff. I think Thomas is perfect. Virginia versus NC State. I think people will assume NC State's going to be the projected higher ranked team this year. I might put a couple of board bets Virginia versus NC State. I think they're both going to be really good, but I think that's a fun conversation. I think they're very, very close. I do.
Okay, I'll take NC State if you're offering.
I think I would too. I think that's a good premise.
ACC preview is going to be
Yes.
Yeah, ACC preview.
Very.
Yes.
ahead.
Jim, a very good middling section by you for the rebuild teams. I'm going to list these teams out because I have very mixed feelings about all of these teams in terms of are they actually good gets, but given the situation, are they? So we have West Virginia. Ross Hodge brought in basically a mid-major all-star team. We'll see how that goes. Maryland, Buzz Williams is basically recreating Texas A&M, bringing in some A&M guys, and his team looks like they're going to struggle to shoot once again. Baylor's gets are really questionable, in my opinion, especially in the backcourt with J.J. White and Obi Agjim from Wyoming, and Skillings even. Texas A&M, I'm a little bit more bullish on because Bucky's building a really fun roster. UCF makes no sense to me, but that's the second straight year that Johnny Dawkins has done that. And then Minnesota is one of those where it's like, oh, you brought in a bunch of mid-major guys. This doesn't look like a power team, but given the resources again versus expectations, you could argue Minnesota did a pretty solid job in the portal. So, Jim, attack any of those teams you want from that middling tier.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss all of them in detail. I think Texas A&M probably is the most fun and most upside of this group. Like it doesn't, there's no guarantee it's going to work, but I think there's enough shooting and ball handling and different types of players, different lineup options for Bucky that I think that one is intriguing to me. Like West Virginia, Maryland feel like kind of low floor, low ceiling, higher floor with smart coaches that brought a couple players with them. Minnesota, I don't know what to think. Baylor's the one where I'm just a little concerned. I'm with you, Kai. I think they thought they're going to have Rob White back, and I don't know how much they replaced it. I've seen some optimism from Baylor fans about their roster, where they're like, oh, we ran out of players last year. I'm not sure you have more than like 7 Big 12 players right now.
No.
I think you got to really see the positive angle of all of them. Like, was Dan Skillings a good Big 12 player last year? I don't know. Abim and J.J. White are both coming from mid-major leagues, and they're slight with defensive questions. I'm a little concerned about them, but I put them in this tier, Matthew, because I think they've got talent, and I like Yesufu, the freshman. He doesn't qualify here, but they did okay considering they had to replace everybody. Like, nobody's back.
I think Baylor, and again, we have a blend of new coaches and continuity coaches here, but I think it's interesting the teams that you have the same coach coming back. Why are you in this? Why was it such a rebuild? Right? Was just sort of a tough timing. Sometimes it works out where you load up on all 5th year, last guys. But you hear coaches talk about how I think there's some strategery and at least give yourself a chance to retain at least a couple of core guys. Everyone always says like 2 to 3 is like what coaches want to try and keep. And Baylor,
I like Ratai a lot. I like Ratai a lot.
I love Ratai. Yes.
I like this team, Jim. I'm with you. I had Indiana and Baylor as sort of. I think Indiana did better than Baylor, but I think they're closer to the same tier in terms of the overall overhaul teams that we're kind of talking about right now. I think Baylor, Indiana are the 2 most fascinating case studies that I think I would put in the middling to winners tier. I still think this team's deep. It's deep, Kai.
I'm calling Baylor a
You're
loser.
calling Baylor
Loser.
deep?
I'm calling
I
Baylor a
think it's
loser.
I think there's a lot to do. I think it's too much quantity though. I don't see high end quality. So I think we both dislike it, but just for different reasons.
Baylor deep. Boy, I don't see that at all. They're like sixth and seventh man or Cam Carr, who Rick Barnes basically was sick of. Isaac Williams, a freshman from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, smallish point guard who can't shoot. I don't know, man. I think there's like six Big 12 guys here.
They lost a bunch of guys
Yeah,
in
I
the
think they come
portal.
9,
They
10.
didn't flip their coach. A good program, and they didn't get really big splashy names. I'm very worried about Baylor, calling them a loser, but I am calling A&M a winner, fellas. I do like what Bucky brought in.
I came around on A&M.
I just love Jakari Lane. I hope he translates from the A-Sun. That guy's awesome. Pop Isaacs, he's played at this level. He can score at the very least. He's a scorer. Rylan Griffin didn't really work out at Kansas as well as we were hoping, but hey, maybe he has a bit of a invigoration. Same with Mbako, who I think is very talented, and maybe Bucky McMillan can get him to lock in a little bit more than Woodson could. Than Federico, solid get. I think they did a really good job in the portal for A&M.
You need depth to play that system, assuming he's going to play a system. And it gets a little shaky at like eighth, ninth, 10th guy, but there's enough there to be competitive for sure.
Okay, we go to the losers here of the rebuild division, and boy, just right off the top of the list here, the Big East, Villanova and Xavier, fellas, major losers. You flip your coach, the Villanova upgrade coach. Okay, you're more of a winner, but boy, he didn't bring in anybody of consequence from the portal, and you bring in Devin Askew, which is a negative impact player in my opinion, and then Patino comes in for Xavier. That's a lateral to, depending on your opinion of Sean Miller, maybe a downgrade. And you bring in just a very questionable class of mid-major players that I have questions about all these guys that they can transfer up to the Big East level. So, Matthew, your take on Xavier and or Villanova.
Your points about Baylor are because I think Baylor's right. You could argue they're a loser, right? I think I'm probably more a fan of their depth because maybe I think their freshmen are going to be better than people think because they always are. But I put Baylor juxtaposed to Xavier, and I just have more faith in like Baylor has a couple of guys who've actually like won, been a part of better teams. Yeah. The Xavier team, like there's a lot of quantity. Feels a lot like the USC roster last season where you had a ton of guys who averaged 15 points a game. So we'll see. And it's kind of young too. Like 4 of those dudes are second year, 5 of those dudes. I mean, you talk about getting older and getting wiser in today's day and age. But I mean, Patino, I get it, right? You got to just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I thought they could have got like a higher end dude, Jim. I think they're a loser. I agree with this.
I think so too. I think there was some intentionality behind getting a lot of guys with years left to like maybe try to build, but retention is tough in this day and age. So we'll see if that happens. They have some upside potential there. Like Robinson was a pretty productive per minute guy. He's kind of got to catch up on the mental side, which is why he doesn't play that many minutes. But Pizzaro's got a bunch of upside. Trey Carroll's a really good scorer. I sort of see that. Borovicinen's like a guy who can shoot a little bit, who played for a good New Mexico team. But there's no point guard I think is worth a damn in the Big East on this roster. Like, sorry, Panoam and Roddy Anderson are not Big East point guards. And the size, the depth, it all is a little bit questionable. But I think Villanova's roster is worse. Like I think Willard is maybe the better coach and is going to prevent them from being awful. But I don't like almost any of Villanova's gets. Like Bryce Lindsey somehow got this huge bidding war early in the portal because he can shoot, but he doesn't do like really anything else. And he's a smaller non-point guard, which I don't love. Duke Brennan is not a P5 big man. He was good in the WAC, but he's not a rim protector, can't really jump. So he's just kind of like your double guy. Ask you, no thank you. Zion Stanford from Temple, kind of shrug. And then you've got 3 guys from Maryland who barely played for a team that could had 5 guys and could have really used some bench minutes. I don't like that one at all. I think Villanova is like a massive loser of the portal, even though they didn't lose that many guys, but like Mosley leaving, that hurts, and just not bringing in Big East caliber players is mostly why I identify them that way.
I like Nova better than you guys do. I think they're a net loser. I had them kind of in the middle of the middling and loser. I think they're sort of on the cut line here because I kind of like 3 of them. I think Lindsey's a lot better than people think, and Duke Brennan, and I'm still a Zion Stanford believer, and they brought some depth pieces with them, which kind of plays well to some quasi continuity. But yeah, for all like the hey, I'm leaving for money BS from Lillard, like you would have thought he would have landed some bigger fish, and now he's working with a kind of a poor roster, I'll say, than what
Small
he had last
fish,
year for sure. Yeah.
smaller fish.
We're
Yes.
gonna find a board bet there, Matthew. If you're somewhat high on that roster,
I'm well, I like Nova's roster better than Xavier's. No? Is that a
I
bad
like
take?
Xavier's a little
You
better, I
do? Okay.
think,
Okay.
but I think Willard's a higher floor coach.
I
I'm gonna
probably agree with
I'm gonna
that.
classify these last four teams into two groups. Number one, Memphis and Arizona State. Teams that normally bring in a ton of talent, and I'm impressed by their transfer classes or recruiting classes. And this year, I'm just not at all. And Memphis, a clear loser, flipping their entire roster and losing PJ Haggerty. And then Arizona State bringing in nobody of consequence, and there's no five stars coming in. This is Hurley's last season, in my opinion. The other category would be Florida State and Utah, two teams that flipped their head coach with promises of, ooh, we're going to bring in some good guys. We're ace recruiters. And that is not manifested in year one of the transfer portal offseason, at least. So maybe we start off with Memphis and Arizona State. Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, the Memphis thing probably changes a little if Dane Danger gets his extra year, which I think they're still trying for. And then you're like, oh, I get why you didn't bring in another big guy besides Bradshaw. Suddenly it looks a little bit better. So I will caveat it with that. And I think Sincere Parker is going to score like crazy. So I like that one. But I think Doug McDaniel is a capital L loser, and I don't want him on my team. Some of those other guys, like it's a little of the American Conference All Stars with Quante Berry coming over. It's not as much as last year, I guess, but I don't love that roster. Curtis Givens is from that Montverde team that rocked, but he was terrible for LSU last year. Decent upside swing, but Thedford from Western Kentucky, bringing back son Ashton Hardaway, who's just been like wandering the wilderness of college basketball and not finding a fit anywhere. I'm used to Memphis having more talent than this. That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to, and that's why I kind of classify them as a loser, like you said, relative to what I would expect them to have.
McDaniel Parker backcourt? Come on.
That
I think
is
that's
No
the
thanks.
PJ
happy.
Haggerty thing. The PJ Haggerty
That
thing
is
screwed
Chuck
him.
happy.
That's a screw him. I think that happened too a little bit too late in the cycle, and then like I don't think they were expecting to lose him. But maybe that was naive given what you knew guys were going to go for, and you probably knew to keep them, you're going to have to offer something stupid. And lo and behold, yeah, you feel like maybe there's a Doug McDaniel renaissance waiting under Penny's tutelage. But we've talked about how they love to turn the ball over, and the only years they haven't is when they've had really good, awesome point guard plays like Kendrick Davis and we'll see. I don't know, Kai. I'm with you. I think they're probably
Last year
losers.
for
Just because of the Haggerty thing, though. I think a lot of it's outside of their control with the Haggerty thing. I think it
Matt,
would have been better if they just kept him.
last year for Bobby Hurley, I actually really like Marcus Adams. I think he's really good. But everyone else, I'm like, this is like bottom three team in the Big 12.
I have a board bet for Marcus Adams versus and Bobby Hurley on court yelling match in a late non-conference game. Adams is a freak talent. He clearly found a perfect home at CSUN, like a good level where he could really strut his stuff. Finally, I think healthy and I guess at a good situation. I know he's a little mentally volatile, and surely Mr. Hurley is, and there's some other guys in this roster that, Holloman is kind of feast or famine too. I think it's kind of a classic Arizona State team where it just feels kind of erratic, but there's enough depth, and Hurley always seems to do a little better job than we think. But then when we think he's doing a great job, he always seems to kind of there's sort of a Hurley zone here, Jim, associated with his perception. I think this roster is going to be up and down, but
100.
trending toward the down.
Is there enough
Yeah.
depth here? I think having a lot of players does not equal depth. Like they have a bunch of people that are on the team. Jake O'Neal, Bryce Ford, are those remotely Big 12 players in your eyes? They're
They're
not to
role players
me.
in the Big 12. I think they can be. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's so generous. Neither of them are shooters. Like Bryce Ford, 22 minutes a game at Toledo, one of the worst Toledo teams we've seen in the last decade. That's a Big 12.
I
If
think he
that's a Big
got
12 guy to you, that's a bad Big 12 team. You show me a Big 12 or team that has that guy
yeah
in the rotation, I'd say bad Big 12 team.
top 60. It's a little bit thin,
They're
I
little
guess.
they're a little small up front. Gerbovich, the big international guy, is a shooter. But yeah, just portal wise, it's underwhelming to me, especially after last year. There was a big deal made about them having a bunch of money and getting Quaintance and Sandin, and I don't look at that roster and think, oh, that team has money and put it to good use.
You can tell just by the fact they went to JUCO, NAIA, the freshman ranks, and they went across the pond to both Europe and Africa to bring in dudes. Georgia Southern,
Leave no
Pepperdine,
stone
yeah.
unturned.
I mean, just anyone come play for us kind of vibes is what it looks like. So yeah, I'd say loser. Not a terrible loser, but loser.
Finishing the rebuild division with Utah and Florida State. Both schools, I think, did not make good coaching hires. I will put that plainly. Utah, in my opinion, should never have fired Craig Smith. And now you get Alex Jensen, who so far, I don't like this portal class very much. Don McHenry maybe has potential, but I don't think he's very efficient. I don't think Terrence Brown is a power conference player from FDU. That's strange. Go down the list, etc. And then I really don't like Florida State's roster, guys. Even though I love Robert McCray, he's an A-Sun Jacksonville stud. The rest of the guys just do not scream ACC caliber players. So losers, both of them.
Yeah, the pitch for both schools was new coach, reinvigorated energy, maybe more fundraising, and it just doesn't feel like either one of them it had as money. I liked the start for Florida State, like, oh, they're getting some shooting, some versatility, and then they just completely ran out of momentum after their first like 4 or 5 players, and now I don't like them anymore. I thought they were going to add more pieces around that. In Utah, it's a real big shrug for me unless Ja'Kai Howard and Elijah Moore, two Power Five rising sophomores, like actually break out and show off a little bit more. Because I'm with you, McHenry Brown is a gross, inefficient chucking backcourt. It's going to get even worse in the Big 12, raising up big time in competition. And beyond that, there's not much offensive firepower. So they were not they did not deliver on what the promise of the hire was with the like infusion of money.
Yeah, agree. Utah's biggest loser to me of like this total overhaul new coach thing. Just sort of think given where they were and what they promised and the fact that they're directly compared to and measure themselves against BYU. Try to emulate that model, but coming nowhere close to as effective. I mean, year one, but still really rough start.
Okay, we're going to go to overall winners and losers, but I peeked ahead. A team we don't talk about is Providence, and there is a direct question in the chat about Providence. So just real quick, fellas, takes on their portal hauls. In my opinion, Jason, I'm calling him a slight winner because I don't think Bryce Hopkins wanted to be there. So him leaving, okay, yeah. But I think Jason Edwards is awesome. I like Jalen Sellers, actually. I don't mind the Daquan Davis get. Duncan Powell is a good like depth piece. So I'm calling him slight winner in the portal.
I agree. I might even go medium winner. I like some of the guys I got. Duncan Powell's kind of a wild. I don't know. Sometimes he kind of does his own thing, but he's a fun, he's a fun, unique player. They might be able to use him kind of as a not Bryce Hopkins, but a versatile big. And I love Jason Edwards. I mean, that's just I think that's you can't underscore how much he could mean to that team who really needs some consistent backcourt play. I think he could be critical.
Yeah,
Monster.
Edwards. To pull a mat and spoil my favorite fits. I have Edwards as one of my favorite fits, but the rest of them I don't like. Like I think Daquan Davis is bad and should not be. Like that's a big downgrade from even Jaden Pierre, who was like not that great for them. I'd rather have Pierre than Daquan Davis in like 8 different ways. And Sellers, we'll see. He's coming off the injury, and his last time on the court wasn't all that productive. Hargrove is one of like 5 dudes from Drexel that is on a Power Five squad, and that team was like 200th in the country. So I'm a little skeptical of 10-7 from that team, although they played slow. And yeah, the Powell experience is crazy. It's just erratic. But the Edwards thing, if you're going to say winner or loser, it's simply because of Edwards. I would shade them more towards winner.
Okay. And now we enter our overall winners and losers section. We'll start on the positive note with our huge winners. Yeah, Kentucky. If you have a lot of money, you're going to bring in a lot of players. That's generally the idea. But Mark Pope also did a good job identifying good players, I think. I think Jalen Lowe is a fantastic get. Jubate is a very, like, under the radar, that's going to be a fantastic get sort of guy. I don't love giving Denzel Aberdeen, like, $2.5 million, but he is a pretty good player. And if JQ can come back from his ACL tear early enough, he's a home run get as well. So Kentucky, big winner. Congrats, you have a lot of money.
Yeah, it hinges on Quainton's knee to me. Like they're a real big winner if he's back healthy the way they seem to think he will be. And Lowe going into a better offensive system and having a little bit better teammates, just the way that team circled the drain, which is partially his fault. But I think he will look reinvigorated in that system. And that's some of the trick of this, Matt, right? Is trying to find guys that like maybe were undervalued and will look much better in a new context. I think Lowe's that type of guy. And I love Diabate. I just think Diabate is a winner all around, scrappy, but also elite defender. So yeah, I think the pieces they brought in, and really the only loss that they even care about in the portal is Travis Perry, I guess. So just a major net positive activity for UK.
I have them as a winner, not like major top five winners. Nitpicky, just trying to adjust a little bit for the expectation. There's just a, I mean, I agree. I think this feels like there are some almost too many hands in the cookie jar, too many mouths to feed. I just talked about how I think Pope will sort it out. This roster takes it to the extreme where like, man, I actually wonder there could be like there could be too many toys to work with, and there could actually be some counterproductive tinkering that Pope has to do. But still, it's going to be hard to mess up. I love Pope. Pope clearly did it well with depth last year. He's proven that's part of his sell, and so they're a winner. Just question is how big of a winner I think you can nitpick.
Michigan, winner, big winner. The front court gets were truly impressive. One of the best front courts in the country. Heck, they were last year with Wolf and Golden. I think I posed this question at some point. Did they upgrade it in the front court with Lindeborg, Morez Johnson, who I think is going to be a freaking stud, and Ademara? Flipping those, obviously Golden and Wolf left for non-portal reasons, so we can't count them in the portal winner and loser equation. But boy, they didn't really take a step off or a step down, we'll say, from those two guys.
Yeah, they've got even more depth. Like Mara is your third big. That's crazy. I was always sort of under the impression that they got Mara because Yax was going to go to the NBA. I think that was generally the perception too. It's like, nope, they're going to have all three and they're just going to hurl them at you in waves. Good luck dealing with them on the glass, in the paint. Got two rim protectors on the court at all times. That's really hard to deal with. They're probably going to be top 20 in 2 point percentage defense, like automatically because of that. The point guard swap, Matt, I don't love. I would rather have Trey Donaldson than Elliot Cadeau next year in a vacuum, but it's not like some crazy downgrade that would offset the huge, huge returns of the front court. So definite winner.
Definite winner. I actually had Cadeau as one of my losers. I think this team is going to work perhaps in spite of him, or May will find out a way to make him work with this roster. But I think the Lendeborg is one of my bigger winners. He was on my list as well, just because of his ability to pass. And, I don't want to over fixate on the Danny Wolf thing last season. He's such a unicorn type player, but I think there's a lot of inverted stuff with versatile passing bigs. We've seen May do that at FAU with Rosado as a really key part off the bench. And I think we saw it last year with Wolf too. I think he gets his forwards involved in creation. And I think that's Yaxel's like kind of sneakiest best skill is his passing, his ability to like set guys up. And I think in this offense, however it comes to fruition, he's going to be awesome. Yeah, they're a winner. Depth, fit, just May's proven track record, adapting to guys he fits. I think again another coach who I don't overlook at the fit equation because I think it's just going to work if you have enough talent and the right type of talent. And this team definitely does.
Yeah. Fun fact, Kai. Danny Wolf, 22.7% assist rate. Big Yaks, 22.9.
Pretty good. I actually kind of like Kadu in this, but I know I'm probably on an island with that one. I think he's going to be good. Another winner. This falls in the category of like kind of a UConn-ish, where it's like we only need one or two guys, and we're going to have a pick of our litter. We just won a title. It's Florida. We'll take Boogie Flan, who's going to be a top 25 player in the country this coming year. Xavier Lee, who we don't know how he'll translate fully to the SEC, but at the minimum, he's going to be pretty good. And then A.J. Brown. Why not? A depth piece, backcourt guy, come off the bench. Florida, good job. You won. Lee Matthew is not as good as Elijah Martin or Walter Clayton. Neither is Boogie Flan, but still winning in the portal sense of the things. Matthew,
no take.
no take. Can you hear
Why
us?
That
is
is-
sorry? That whole thing.
Matt, we might have lost him. We might have lost him, Kai.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the Florida thing, I mean, these are probably maybe closer on the margins, but like Florida didn't really lose. And when I was looking at my player rankings, Kai, the difference in where I have Flan versus Aberdeen really should dictate the fact that I think that was a net win for them.
Yeah.
So I will give them a nod there. And they didn't like their other losses are graduation. So the fact that they were able to replenish with two like very good guards is super helpful. And they didn't lose any of the front court pieces. When you have five or four dudes that can play and should be getting 25 minutes on a power conference team and none of them leave, I think that also makes you a little bit of a winner. And Louisville, I just love the fit of the guards in that system. Like McNeely and Conwell chucking at the volume of Rain Smith is terrifying to me because those guys are such good shooters. McNeely's already making 100 plus threes in a system that moves at molasses. Now getting up and down, playing in transition, he could be deadly. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah, sorry. I don't my whole spreadsheet just collapsed, Jim. Your spreadsheet broke my computer, my other monitor for a
Oh,
second.
it's
It scared
my
me.
fault,
It's
huh?
your fault.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, dude, manage your spreadsheets, dude. Come on.
Louisville
Yeah, I
or
mean,
Florida,
for
either one, Matt.
both are winners. Obviously, I think Florida. I mean, AJ Brown. I love AJ Brown. He may not even see the floor much for this team, but I think he's a key piece because if they try and do the three big lineup and maybe they want to go back to more of a two big lineup with Howe at the four, and you can bring Brown in as the three. Maybe Isaiah Brown breaks out, or you got uh, you know, Clavsar. Obviously, they're 2 and 3. So yeah, a ton of versatility, optionality with Florida. And that's always been Golden's uh kind of golden goose, so to speak. Even though I think they kind of found a bigger rim dominant identity last season, they can jive with different looks this season.
Yeah, I gotta revisit my Ryan Conwell ranking in top 100 this year because I'm pretty sure I have him lower than last season, which he did nothing wrong last year. It wasn't his fault that Xavier didn't make the tournament. He was pretty freaking fantastic. He's awesome. Ryan Conwell is still awesome. Still a huge fan. So Louisville, yeah, great gets. We touched on Washington briefly. Matt, you're very into Washington this year.
I am.
I like Wesley Yates a ton. I think he's going to be a stud. I don't think Desmond Claude is a good locker room guy, so I think that's going to actually be a negative. Ognosovich, I love in the A Sun. That's the third A Sun guy I've mentioned, but I don't know how he translates that well, especially defensively. And then Q Peterson, I have plenty of questions about as well at this level. So for me, Washington is still kind of a wait and see.
I think Sprinkle's pretty cutthroat. He doesn't like beat around the bush. If Zoom Diallo doesn't pan out, I think you just got really good Zoom Diallo insurance in Claude. I'm not worried about like a fit thing there. I don't think he's going to play him together. So I think he just wants another kind of wing or kind of larger guard wing creator. And I mean, Claude's more of a wing than Diallo's more kind of a guard, but still like kind of a longer, lengthier guy who can create and set up dudes. But I mean, I'd love Peterson. Yates is going to be a stud. I mean, even Tucker could break out sort of in the Indiana post type sleeper thing. And I don't want to wax poetic about Washington because I talked about them earlier, but I think they got some good people. Oh, Peterson's a stud. I think some of those ETSU guys that left are like winner dudes that I would want on my team. Peterson being the main attraction there.
Yeah, he was the best player in the conference. He won Player of the Year for a reason. I mean, both of their mid-major ads are Players of the Year, Ignacevic and Peterson. That's cool. The other four guys are from the Big Ten. I'm a little skeptical on Tucker, but Washington's close to Kentucky in the sense of we have so much money that it's hard not to be a winner when you look at us in the portal. Last year, maybe that crop wasn't that good with so much money going to Osborne, but I think I like their activity, and I'm not worried about Mason and Harris and the guys that went out the door. I think they generally upgraded and will be much better this year.
Two more winners in my book, and then I have three more middling ones that I'll question Matt and Jim about, and then we'll talk about a couple margins before we go to the losers category. I think Oklahoma and Wisconsin are clear winners in the portal this season, especially if you take into account what they lost in the portal, which was not a whole lot. And I don't think the resources compared to other schools in their leagues are fantastic. And what Porter Moser and Greg Gard brought in was just really good players. Oklahoma brought in Xavier Brown from St. Joe's, who is a stud, and maybe many think he's a future pro. Nigel Pack has been in college for years, and I like Tay Davis a lot from Notre Dame. So great gets for Oklahoma. And then on the flip side, Wisconsin brings in Nick Boyd, Matt's favorite player from a couple years ago for FAU, who went to San Diego State last year. Andrew Rohde had a much better season last year at Virginia after adjusting to the power level. I think he's going to be really good in this system. And then, sure, Austin Rapp from Portland. I think they can use him in this system for sure as a stretch guy, 6'10", to pair with a couple guys coming back in Blackwell and Winter. So, Matthew, OU, Wisconsin, do you also consider them winners?
Yeah, I had partial winners. I'm not as high on Wisconsin. It, I just think having, I don't, John Blackwell and John Tony were such a dueling dragons beast last year, and Blackwell's going to be he's probably my pick to win player of the year in the league. But
Wow,
they had
hot
two of
take.
him last season. Now they just have one. That's kind of the
Just
big deal.
Braden Smith Erasure right there.
Oh yeah, Brain Smith. I guess I'm gonna pick him. Okay, Blackwell's the best. I think he's the best part in this conference. He's that good. I
Well,
think
that's not true. Braden Smith, Coffin Wren.
I can't wait to see Matt's player rankings when he drops them in the spreadsheet.
They're
lot of
different
other Big
players.
Ten
They're
guys.
different players. Blackwell's terrific.
He is
I would
terrific.
have
Great
I'd
player.
rather have Blackwell than Coffin Wren. By the way, I would definitely take Blackwell over Coffin Wren.
Ooh.
Positional value and skill and creation.
Yax
but-
Lindeborg. We can go on. Go ahead.
My concern is what made last year work was so unique, and I think this year feels more like a kind of come back down to earth. Was like kind of a high floor, low ceiling Wisconsin team. Last year actually had a high ceiling Wisconsin, and I think they lost that with Tom.
You
Jack.
never liked Wisconsin, you liar. You didn't like them
You do
last
hate the
year.
best.
You didn't like
I don't
them
like them last year. No one liked them last year. I thought they were to suck
liked
last
them
year.
last
No
year.
one liked it. Oh, no one
Check
liked
the
it.
tape.
No,
Sure.
Kai was higher on him.
Check the tape.
Kai had good Wisconsin receipts, even without knowing Tanjay was going to be supernova most free throws made in the country. I just wrote them for next year. Wrote the preview, and
Damn, you're ahead.
the ceiling's not as high. Unless they
I
have
agree.
some
I agree.
nuclear breakout, and Blackwell has to shoot better than like 31.5% from three. That's
He's got a
important.
nice looking shot. He'll make shots this year.
We'll see.
Blackwell's good.
I like Oklahoma a lot. That's a team I think I'm a little higher than you guys in the top 40 voting. I just think that top four core is really good. Wagi was awesome when he actually played bigger minutes down the stretch, and they needed him to. Depth, major question. We'll fully cop to that. But Moser at least doesn't typically need a ton of depth from his teams because he plays a little slower. So that helps. We'll see how Jaden Jones and Jeff Noenko look off of injuries. But the portal win, I think, is clear.
So, Jim, the middling teams I alluded to were ones that I'm like, okay, maybe. Georgetown, Ole Miss, VCU. I do think Georgetown overall can be considered a winner in the portal. I do like KJ Lewis and Langston Love if he's healthy, and even Jeremiah Williams, and we'll see on DHS from Maryland.
And they got rid of Jaden Epps.
They got rid of Jaden Epps, so that is a huge win for them. So Georgetown's more of a winner. VCU, considering they had to flip their entire team, considering their level in the A10, I think they did do a pretty good job in the portal. However, I'm going to disagree on Ole Miss. I am not impressed by what they brought in. I think AJ Storr can have a bounce back, but everyone else, I'm kind of like shrug.
Yeah, that's fair. They I guess part of this ranking was they didn't lose anyone that mattered at all. No one that played even 5 minutes per game left.
point.
So
Yep.
that's sort of, I guess, when I put them in as a net activity. Stores, I could see Store working here the way like Beard always has like a sort of higher volume chucker that works at the top of the offense. But yeah, I also really like Corey Chest and James Scott. I think those guys are very helpful front court pieces. Chest like really impacts the game. I thought it was a nothing get when he first happened, and now I've talked myself into it. Gifa, Perry, I don't know, man. The more I look at each guy, I can kind of see it, but maybe I could see skepticism as well because they're not overly proven at the SEC level.
Yeah, I put them in the middle. I didn't really have them in. There was kind of a no man's land. I just the last couple of years of the Beards teams, it just feels like there isn't really a clear like approach. Just get a bunch of guys and coach them and try and find a. It's the one teams whose identity in the SEC I really have trouble detecting. I think Beard has evolved and evolved quickly. I think trying to modernize some of his stuff and a lot of the rosters he's put together the last couple of years, and this one included I'm sort of no man's land with Ole Miss. So I don't know. I think I'd call that neutral.
And then finally, before the winners, BYU and UConn. In my opinion, both winners. UConn added a perfect piece in Demery. I cannot. He's a perfect freaking fit. And I don't know if it's controversial. He's an upgrade over Jara, in my opinion.
Yes,
significant.
100%.
I really think they hit a home run with Demery. And then BYU, I think Robert Wright's going to absolutely shine next season. And Kennard Davis was a guy that I wanted for Mizzou. I thought they could get. He's a great complimentary piece for guys who are already bringing back. So to me, clear winners, doing a little, but having high impacts.
Yeah, I'm not like
Agreed.
terrified of losing Cannon Catchings. Dalen Hall.
No, near mind.
Dalen Hall's solid. Rob Wright's higher upside of that too.
Matthew, anything to say there?
BYU a default winner. They just have so much to like, kind of like Kentucky. It's like it's hard to really talk passionately about how much they won because they obviously won. Hard to lose with that much money.
Okay, we head to the negative side of the pod here. The losers. the losers. We are going to go a little long today. That's okay. Oregon is a loser, and I keep moving them down my rankings. And just to kind of bring in other Big Ten teams here, Michigan State is also a loser because Izzo is allergic to the portal, and he's bringing in now one less guy with Glenn. That's not really his fault that he got hurt, but basically Trey Fort instead of Trey Holloman, which is probably a downgrade. And then Illinois, which, again, we can't count all the international guys Brad Underwood's bringing in, but didn't do much in the portal either. So those three teams, I think, is where we're going to start the loser conversation. Yeah, Oregon, Jim, what are you doing?
Yeah, Illinois fans will probably go up in arms at this. You're less of a loser than I would say Sparty or Oregon.
Agreed.
And part of it is because you put money into Mirkovic and Petrovic,
Yes.
and that is a big part of it. And losing Morris Johnson, who Kai and I are both very high on. That's
exactly.
part of that
I like
equation.
Stojakovic for the record. I just think, yes, net activity. Slightly.
Yeah, Oregon, I just don't know what they were doing with Kwame Evans and Nate Biddle back. I don't think putting most of your resources or your best transfer in air quotes being Sean Stewart, a guy that's like redundant with Kwame Evans, makes any sense to me. Fill out the wing roster a little bit. Devin Pryor can't be a starting wing for a really good team. I think that's going to be an issue. Even Simpkins, I don't love at this level. So I don't like what Oregon did. I don't think they got enough pieces either. So volume and quality is a problem. Michigan State's kind of the same way. I've been beating the drum for Trey Fort for a while, but he's still like, if he's your only shooter, the guy that played 24 minutes a game for Bucky isn't maybe the guy you want to rely on that heavily in the Big Ten. So yeah, Matt, definitely questions there. And losing Caleb Glenn hurts. So I don't know how to like factor that into the grade, but it just kind of comes back to get more pieces, get more options, use this a little more liberally than you have, Mr. Rizzo.
Yeah, no, Illinois is fine. They just don't, they're not up. I think they're exempt from this conversation because of how uniquely they built their roster this season.
Fair.
Oregon, I agree.
Fair.
You have Shellstad, Biddle, and Evans. Like, I know Evans' stats weren't great last year. I mean, I think, but Biddle and Shellstad, those bookends, like, you have an opportunity to build a really good roster. I thought you would have gone out and just made some mega splashes and tried to double down on having two, like, potential all Big Ten guys that are super versatile. I mean, Shellstad's just such a stud, obviously. And it's just like, oh, okay, really? I agree. So they're a big loser because I think they missed an opportunity. I see you guys mentioned, you said Arkansas. Arkansas for me is a big loser. I thought another Michigan State, Arkansas had opportunities to add guys. They needed to add guys. There wasn't really a reason. I don't feel like they didn't. I don't know if there was stubbornness. They just missed out on a few guys. I know we'll talk about Kansas in a little bit here too, but those are the ones that stuck out to me. And then Colorado, I don't even feel like I want to talk about. It's just too sad. But that's just a money thing. We'll get to them here in a second.
I think Hargis is a good get for Colorado, but
Love Hargis.
You have to call them a loser. Unfortunately, they just don't seem to have any money at all for basketball. Arkansas, I'm a little more like middle because I think it was kind of intentional. They have high
they want a freshman
talent coming in. They have sophomores rising up that were 5 stars and high 4 stars. You didn't need a whole lot in the portal. Could they have gotten one more guy for depth? Yeah, probably. So I'm calling them like a middle tier.
Is there like a 2-year NIL plan with some of these freshmen? Like,
I think they just didn't do good enough. Like Wagner Wagner's a freaking junior now, I guess. But Knox and Richmond are 2 sophomores coming up.
You could argue that, Jim, you're right. With the class they have coming in, they've still brought back 4 really good pieces. Like, even Billy Richmond looked great last year down the stretch. Like, maybe they didn't need to do as much as I thought. I just thought with the money they had, they could have really cemented themselves as like a holy crap top 5 surefire roster. And I'm not quite there yet with what I look at. So again, just like Oregon missed opportunity.
Yeah, like last year they took off because Nelly was incredible. And I think you could have gone for some kind of player like that. I don't know if you need to fully reserve a ton of minutes for Malik Thomas. You can have him be 8th guy. I don't know. It's just they're one injury away from being in real dire straits once again because he keeps filling out the roster with non-players. It's Semedo, Zavic, and Artale or whatever. Those guys are bad. I'm sorry, Arkansas fans. They're bad. They're not SEC caliber players, and I think they'll run into that problem. So I would have liked to see another piece, and given their money situation, I thought they'd have enough to make one more big splash.
Yeah, and sticking with the SEC, Georgia, I would say is a loser, Jim. I didn't like their haul. You lose Demery, which is huge. Jordan Ross doesn't excite me. Jeremiah Wilkinson, you have my attention, but Cannon Catchings, no thanks. not somebody I want to bring in.
Yeah,
I
he basically like BYU sort of took off when they bench catchings. So I don't know.
I didn't like
How
the
do you get
Purdue
me
thing
super
either.
pumped about
I
that?
didn't like the Purdue interaction.
I agree. No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of we're both probably Painter apologists. So when Painter
We are.
sort of like insinuates like he kind of flaked, then yeah, it makes me what a bad kid. I actually kind of like the other guys short. I had Georgia sort of in the middle of the road for me. You have to account for the losses for sure, but I think the guys they brought in, given they were unfortunate to lose a few, I like Ross Wilkinson quite a bit, and I'm a big Smurf Millender fan
I
off
know
the
you
bench.
like him.
I think he's actually pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, he can
Yeah, I
shoot,
just
unlike the other two.
losing Demery is a big
Yeah.
problem, and I don't think they brought in guys remotely on that level.
Kind of in the middle section here of loser. I guess flirting with loser. You know what? I'll call Kansas a loser, but four really big team names: Kansas, Duke, Arizona, Houston. Three Big 12 teams, of course. Kansas.
I think they lost.
We expected more. I'll give away one of my weird fits. Melvin Council. I don't understand why Kansas took him. They had pick a litter pretty much, but you bring in Council, Dawson, White. Ordinarily, I think White and Dawson are pretty good role players, but I think he needed a stud in the portal. Not that Self didn't try, but it's just underwhelming for what the Institute of Kansas is.
Yeah, that's what all these were. And the notes I put in were like, I just expected a little more from teams of this caliber. Like Duke, you mentioned that one of the big strengths they did last year was filling out rotation spots with
Perfect.
Sion James, Mason Gillis, like and having Proctor back. Like it doesn't feel like they're gonna have the same kind of experience factor and veteran type presences on the team, which is a little bit of a problem. Kansas, yeah, like, how did they not make one more big splash? As you mentioned, they tried and thought they had Sarr. They thought they had maybe Darian Williams in on that. None of that worked out. Arizona not bringing a single transfer that will
Yeah.
do anything is weird to me. I know they got leveraged on some of the freshmen, and Tommy Lloyd's an international guy, so maybe they've got somewhat of the Illinois exception in terms of
Yeah.
roster building. But I would have liked to see a transfer because they've had some good ones and have built roster around it in the past. So I thought maybe they'd go for it. And then Houston, just once Pop Isaacs exited stage left, it's like you could get one more guard, but maybe they trust their internal development. But just all those, I thought they would get one more piece, and given their status and I think money, I thought they'd be able to.
And Matthew, their track record of Houston with their portal gets like LJ Cryer and Uzan and Shed portal guy
Yeah,
actually.
No, Shed was
homegrown. But Cryer and Uzan. I mean, they've had some
Wait, I
pretty
thought
good history.
Shed came from Bakersfield.
No,
You like don't
no, he did not.
Are you thinking of the Poly guy, maybe?
Jamal
No,
Shed?
Shed was Houston through and through.
I think Shed was starting at Houston. Yeah.
Can you check that?
Sure, I'll
Yes.
check it. Yeah, give us your take on Houston.
He was at Houston the entire time, confirmed.
What? Okay, I'm an idiot.
You're thinking of
who am I thinking of?
the big long athlete on the Final Four team, 2021. It was Dejan Giroux.
Oh, Giroux.
Oh, Giroux, you're right. Okay.
Well, hey, count him.
So Houston and Arizona, I'm not worried about. I think Arizona maybe was a little stubborn. That's fair, but they got kind of screwed with Carter Bryant thing. I think he's going to be an absolute like monster, and every NBA draft guy loves him. I think that's just a tough spot. Kansas like missing on a couple of key guys. I think really shows like they knew they needed more and they didn't get them, so now they're kind of stuck with what I think is a pretty thin roster, one that's highly leveraged on Darren Peterson, who I believe is going to be an absolute star. Like it sort of reminds me of like the Quentin Grimes freshman year. There's a lot riding on his shoulders, and he was a little bit like good, but not consistent. I like Kansas as an older unit, just generally the best Kansas teams, older guards. Bill Self is kind of one of the pioneers of like the lead guard where you don't really have positional guard orientations generally. And Peterson, I think, is going to be just another line in that long list.
The Bakersfield guy was Tajay Moore, Matthew.
Tajay Moore,
Very good.
okay.
Yeah.
I swear the Jamal Shid came from Baker. What the hell did I think that? That was
Just rattling off a few more here. In the Colorado section, Stanford and Notre Dame, we need money. Basically, we need money.
Yeah,
So
like we can't get
us.
certain guys in, that sort of thing too.
Unfortunately.
Like
I have to mention Marquette because for the second year in a row, they've done literally nothing in the portal. And
okay
once
with that.
again,
Do what you gotta
they could use somebody this year, especially
No,
no
I'm not
Cam
okay with
Jones
it.
in the team, Sean Jones off injury. I mean, yeah,
last year they were clearly a
something.
piece short. I think get one guy. You can still be loyal to your guys without ignoring it. Like Shock has had success at Marquette with transfers. That's what's confusing to me is he's like
Yeah, it's
gone
fair.
so hard one way where it's like the Dabo thing, like in football. Like I hate the portal so
Yeah.
much, I'm not going to even use it. I don't think he hates the portal, but it can be an asset if you use it right. And I think Marquette could have been better served just getting one guy to help fill in the blanks.
I think it's just worth it to uphold like the unicorn unique brand. Like if you could have got one or two more guys, sure, but it's really cool that like all your dudes came back basically and you're all the freshmen you bring in, it's like, no, yeah, this is your team. We're not going to bring anyone else in. Like it's your like if we absolutely probably need to in a dire straits, we would. But I mean, yeah, if Jones and Ross stay healthy, like that team could be kind of a dangerous little squad to it that no one's taking seriously now that Cam Jones is exited.
A couple teams, real quick. We're going to do winners or losers, and then 3 or 4 from the chat I want to touch on quickly, and then we'll head to our mid majors. So, guys, I'll start because I'm brave. UCLA, St. John's, Creighton. I think St. John's is 100% a winner. Fit be damned, because I think Patino is that good, and I love the talent. UCLA had a lot go out the door, but Donovan Dent is like a top 15 type of talent, and I think Xavier Booker still has a lot of meat on the bone in terms of talent for him. And then Creighton, I'm a little bit more towards the middle because it is just Iowa and Nick Graves. And there's different opinions on how Nick Graves is going to do at the Big East level, Jim.
Yeah, and Harper from Howard too.
And
I
Harper.
probably
I
should have
actually do
mentioned
like
him, but
Harper.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because like we'll get into this in a little bit on my list about favorites and least favorites. Like guys that were good for Fran McCaffrey, do I think they're gonna be even better for Greg McDermott? Yeah, maybe. I think that's entirely possible. St. John's, I'm with you. There was a little bit of debate in the Discord yesterday about like fit and whether Dylan Darling's good enough, whether they are dumb to bring in Sand and Sellers and uh, uh, Ian
Ian
Jackson all
Jackson.
on the same team. It's like I just kind of am okay with Rick Pitino having talent, and there's enough combinations that make sense to me there that I'm probably more in on St. John's than a lot of the people in the Discord. And then, yeah, UCLA Dent is the ultimate equalizer. Mac seemed to fall a little bit out of favor. Mata's good, but has kind of a minutes cap because he's not in great shape and can't move all that well. I just don't like Booker, so they're more neutral to me because I don't think Booker's good.
Matthew.
UCLA has a weird roster where it's like they actually feel small in a weird way. It's like Cronin's always had like a couple of like awesome fives that I'm like fired up about, or like are just gonna
Oh, but
own the
you're a
class.
Jamerson guy, aren't you?
I like Jamerson, but like no one's talking. I'm worried he's like hurt or something. Why is no one talking about it? I love Jamerson, but
Yeah, it's all
everyone's
Xavier
like,
Booker,
"Ooh, can Xavier
1.5 million
Booker play
dollars.
the
Yeah.
five?" I mean, I don't know. What about my guy? Anyway, Dent's so good. I like that they had a Cronin like recruited him pretty heavily, like coming out of high school. So I think there's like an actual like Cronin relationship vibe there, not like Cronin sold his soul to the NIL bags and paid big money to get him. Like I think there's going to be actual real chemistry fit there with Dent, who is from the LA area, I believe originally. So I love that, right? Like kind of like the Sturts McCollum thing I talked about earlier. Coach, point guard, in lockstep, good vibes there. I think that can carry a long way. It can mask a lot of other roster and injury issues that might pop up throughout the year.
Quick hitters from the chat: Oklahoma State, TCU, Purdue, North Carolina. Oklahoma State for me, big loser. Big. TCU, slight winner. I actually like the guys they brought in. Focus on more shooting this time for Dixon. Good job. Purdue, net neutral. I don't like losing Colvin and Heidi, but I love the Oscar Clough get. UNC, net loser for me. Even though I do like Visar, they had a lot walk out the door.
Yeah, I'm kind of down on Oklahoma State too. Volatile personalities, not a ton of like proven P5 caliber guys, and I don't care about the guys they lost, but the ones they brought in don't overly excite me either. North Carolina, yes, Visar rocks. I will rate him very highly in our top 100 players, but beyond that, little shaky. Wish they had a little more shot creation, rim pressure. A lot on Seth Trimble, who kind of was up and down last year. Clough rocks. We're stepping on toes again. He's one of my favorite fits, just because giant,
Same.
dominant interior post player going to Matt Painter makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. So that one I was very in on. But they now have no wings, athletic wings with any size without Colvin and Heidi, and I think that's going to show up in the defense a little bit.
Oklahoma State, I actually think is going to be fine. I look at the Kanye Claire and Anthony Roy, and it's like, oh no, not those two guys. But I sort of think they're going to play Jalen Curry and Victorious Miller over those two. I hope because Lutz is kind of a no nonsense guy,
Mhm.
um, and he just hired, I believe, the Putnam Science former coach who I want to say Jalen Curry is part of that network from UMass. I actually love Jalen Curry. I think Frank Martin like raved. I thought he was like an all time winning dude. I think there's actually a winning DNA if you peel back the blinding annoyances of Kanye Clary and Anthony Roy. Like Coleman's a winning player. Coleman, the other Coleman's a winning player. UAB. I like those guys. There's more to OK State.
Well,
I'm in on OK State's.
Isaiah Coleman's team was pretty bad last year, to be fair.
I know. I don't think it's because of him. I think he's a good
And he
player.
did shoot 38% from the field.
He had no
That's
help. He had no help.
Okay. Hey, board betting on Oklahoma State for the future. Great.
Yep.
Quickly touching on mid-majors, just a list of winners and losers. Feel free to go in on any of these you want. Yeah, South Florida, many people are talking about them competing with Memphis for the American. Brian Hodgson's done a great job getting a roster together. High Point hasn't skipped a beat despite losing their head coach. UC Santa Barbara, of course, Pasternak brings in guys every year. He's got 2 power guys in his backcourt. So, yes, clear winner. Tulsa, Jim? Tulsa? I
agree. I had Tulsa written down too.
I have not paid attention to Tulsa, so you guys educate me on Tulsa, please.
Yeah, I started doing initial American power rankings, Matt, and they're like flirting with top 5. I mean, the league lost a lot of talent, but I thought they brought in a good class, and Conco has done well in the past at Louisiana Tech. He hasn't found it at Tulsa, but I think they got a chance, man. I'm intrigued.
I agree. I don't get how they got players. Like I really don't understand. I was like that team was just so I don't know, and just how bad the first year was, and then like last season wasn't great either. I just felt like that was a program stalling from momentum. So to see a coach who feels like he's not on the hot seat, but like needs to win, needs to kind of make a step, I didn't think he would land a lot of the fish that he did. Like it's very much a depth play, but there's some good, I think, power conference-ish dudes on that roster. That was kind of the one thing I wrote down. I was like, wow, Tulsa, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like the 5 assist a game point guard for Arkansas State, who was really good in the Sun Belt. Rigsby, who was really good for Troy, who won the Sun Belt. Barnstable, arguably the best player on St. Thomas last year, who was right up there in the Summit.
David Green's terrific,
Green
like one of the best A10
like
players and healthy. Yeah,
you're getting there with it. Like, all right, cool.
All right, I'm in. UNLV, Passer and flipped the roster. Relatively speaking, did a pretty good job filling out the pieces. So, slight winner for me for UNLV.
I had the A10 overall as a win. I thought there's a lot of good A10 work in Portal.
Yeah, honestly, SLU. I think SLU is awesome
for sure.
in the Portal.
Yep.
Good. Losers, yeah, the Ivy and the Patriot. Ivy can't really do anything, bring in guys. I guess Patriot doesn't really either.
I mean, neither of them. They can't.
Yeah, that sucks. Every year, gutted.
So specifically Princeton, you lose a guy like Xavier Lee, and you just have no avenue to replace him.
Pierce back? Is Caden Pierce back?
He is,
Okay,
surprisingly.
that's surprising. UC Irvine they lost 3 starters, but I have a feeling Russell Turner is going to be okay and have them near the top of the Big West again. Troy lost players, of course, because when you do well in a mid-major, you get picked off. South Dakota State lost their coach. This might be like one of the first years that I don't have South Dakota State near the top of the Summit. We'll see. And then Robert Morris, again, the Troy syndrome. You do really well, you make the tournament, and your reward is all your players go to power conference teams. Matthew.
Who else? Sorry, who else on my list here? Yeah, so UC Santa Barbara. I thought Big West. I had another conference. Big West overall. I thought did some pretty had a lot of tough spots with guys who were older that moved out. Had to replace a lot, but like most of those teams, I thought were good portal teams. Just evidence up the conference again. That kind of rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah, and UC Santa Barbara to get Mahaney and Nero Little, who are 2 top 75 talents and kind of at that level, which is trending closer to top 10, top 5, top 7-ish league. And you got Kittens from Louisiana, who was like going to be first team all league until he got hurt. That's a great buy low UC Santa Barbara bounce back from mid-major.
Yeah, Kai, just listing the losers, like you said, bummed me out. Like, Troy makes the tournament, Robert Morris makes the tournament, and you're like,
congrats.
Rosters just get pillaged. Yep.
Okay, fellas, we've reached the part of the pod where we're going to give away our favorite and least favorite fits. I wrote down maybe a little bit too many. You guys already see my list because it's in the outline. Spoiler. So hopefully danced around those, or you can just reinforce the ones I have. I won't list all mine. I'll just maybe pick 3 to start for the favorites. So favorite fits. I think Demery for UConn might be my favorite fit in the country. I just think it's a smart, perfect get for them. Darian Williams and NC State, is a perfect fit. And I'll go Rob Wright for BYU. Perfect fit, point guard. You need him, stud, sophomore leap, alongside Devonsa.
Yeah, you also, I think, did you put Conwell, Kai?
Ryan Conwell, Louisville is on the list as well, Jim. Yes.
Yeah, he was on my list. That's why I just brought him up. I just think getting him in an up-tempo play and transition system, he's going to be electric. Agree with Demery, big guard, offense that doesn't need true point guard creation, so he doesn't have that responsibility on him. I think that's a great fit. A couple I had listed, we've mentioned a few. Oscar Clough, we mentioned Brendan Hausen going to Iowa to fill that Muscari role, I think is perfect. Edwards being a big-time scorer for a coach that lets him shoot. Marion Dickerson to USC, I think is perfect, like Swiss Army knife, switchable guy for Musselman. Lawan Watts is a perfect Darian Williams replacement as the big burly passer, post scorer at Texas Tech. And then Dylan Mitchell, I think handing Rick Pitino, one of the best defenders all around in the country, can guard 1 through 5 is, I think that one's going to work. So I had to include him. I got a couple more, but Matt, I'll let you drop a couple names.
So I had Malik Thomas, talked about him earlier. I actually had Mackenzie Mbako as a major winner for me. I think he's like a no question, was just in a terrible usage situation at IU, totally disengaged. Now he goes to an open, more spread out offense where he'll probably play the 4. I just look at all the Bucky kind of hybrid small ball 4s that he's had success with at Sanford. I mean, obviously it's different in the SEC, but I think he's going to be terrific there. Talked about Jason Edwards as well for Providence. Talked about Yaxel Wendelborg. I had him as well. I actually had Josh Dix. Didn't mention him when we talked about Creighton.
I have him on my list too, Matthew.
Sure.
Yep. List of 10.
I mean, right?
Perfect.
Like up tempo, pace, space, just a little Midwest.
McDermott's like no one gets guys open shots better than McDermott.
I totally agree.
And I had and Tatum Connerway. I think if he
throw him in there.
I just think he's a perfect gritty defensive-minded junkyard dog type point guard with a lot of offensive upside. Although consistency is going to be the question if he's going to be that guy. But I'm just a sucker for a lot of guys that play for Scott Cross and Troy, and I think he will jive with Darian DeVries, who's kind of an old school type dude too. So that was on my list.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Kyle, like your Morez mentioned.
Morez Johnson, baby. Michigan.
Good call.
Yeah,
Gritty.
He's such a stud. Yeah, he's gonna be really good.
Like he's perfect, like golden type, like angry dunker all over the glass.
No all-star for sure.
Yes.
No question.
And then 2 big point guard splash transfers. Donovan Dent for UCLA, we talked about. Jacoby Gillespie is a guy we have not talked about. I think that's just a perfect replacement for Ziegler. He's bigger. He's better offensively for sure. Defensively, maybe not. I mean, Ziegler's kind of a pest, but perfect get for Tennessee in Gillespie.
Yeah, I wanted to put Tennessee as a winner. I wish they would have done a little more with the backcourt.
More.
The 2, 3,
How about
4
Michi,
spots.
Yeah,
Michi Johnson.
Man, I almost put Michi
South
Johnson.
Carolina. We know we see it. We know what's coming.
It
works.
Yeah.
It's a proven case. That's awesome. So he's the first boomerang, double boomerang, correct?
Double boomerang, yeah.
Boomerang back around.
The last one's that I also had McNeely with Conwell. I think he'll be fun at Louisville.
Yeah.
And Nick Davidson, Nevada to Clemson. I think Brownell's shown he can use that like inside out big really well. So I like that one. And Price Sandfort, Iowa to Nebraska, the big shooter wing. I like that one as well for Freddie Hoiberg. Least favorites, Kai. Ooh, I've got some names.
You want me? I'll go first because
Please do.
You already see mine. Yeah, Melvin Council for Kansas. I just don't think that was a smart get, especially if you're going to have a high usage guy with Peterson. You need somebody more efficient than Council, and he's played at lower levels. It's not a good fit for me. Sincere Harris, Cincinnati. Why? Why does he hate shooting? Wes Miller hates shooting.
I know. He's so
you don't need you don't need another all-conference defensive guard, all-defense guard, which Harris is. Great defender. You need a guy who can shoot, and you brought in Harris. You're going to start him with James in the backcourt? Like, good. I don't know. Anthony Roy, one of the worst gets of the entire transfer portal. He scored 25 points a game at Green Bay. Who cares? Like the guy is not a winner. I think it's going to be a locker room issue. Clearly, Doug Gottlieb got him this Oklahoma State transfer. I just can't stand it. Jaden Epps.
So funny enough, Kai, I put Clary.
Okay, Clary too.
Like you can take your pick of guy who hasn't been winner and has like been kicked off / quit on 2 teams. Like it's bad.
Bad.
I hope neither of them start.
UCF.
Jalen Curry is the answer. Oklahoma State. You heard it here first.
UCF's entire team again, and then Jaden Epps, Mississippi State. Jans, You don't need to take
Also on my
Jaden
list.
Epps. What are you doing? All right. Okay. Passing the mic.
What's the Jaden Epps appeal at this
I don't
point? He
know.
shoots sub 40% from the field. He's
I don't
not a good
know.
defender. He hasn't been on winners. I don't get it. I don't know why he's tempting people. All right, Matt, we're gonna have a quick debate on a guy. You have to prove to me that Jordan Ross is good. I think he's terrible. He was bad last year. Sub 40% from the field, sub 30% from three, not high volume, playing in a system that always optimizes guys. People that leave St. Mary's really scare me. Look what happened to Mahaney when he leaves town. Why is that guy an SEC player? Why is he an SEC athlete?
Fair.
Can't shoot, score. I think that's like an awful fit. I think he's going to be a disaster there, and they're going to have to play Wilkinson and Smurf a lot.
That's fun. Well, Smurf, I think Smurf's good too.
Yeah, Smurf's good.
I think that's why Georgia's actually a fascinating because last year they were talented but young. This year they're also talented but also kind of young, right? There's a lot of sophomores, multi-year dudes, and I think White is keen on keeping that retention door open, which was somewhat good, but I think he probably got burned by losing Demery there to some degree. I think Ross will be fine as a role player. I know he looked like out of his depth against Bama, but he was the best player on the floor against Vandy the game before. Who, by the way, is a team we probably haven't talked enough about on this. They're one of the more intriguing. Do you like their roster or not? With Byington there.
I do.
That aside, I do. I think I do as well. I've come around to it. I just think that's sort of a guy I don't over nitpick the fit question mark. I had Malik Renew written down. I just don't him going to Miami.
With Uday is weird.
With Uday, right? Like I think he needs
rim dominant.
Yeah. I think Renault is a tough player. He's like a college conundrum because I think he needs a certain situation to work, and it's hard to play him. It's hard to build a team around him that works because he's kind of limited in what he does.
He works best with I would think a stretch five, right?
Who can maybe come out and pat like a Vulgaris maybe. Like maybe him and Vulgaris could be cool for Iowa or something. You pull Vulgaris more away from the rim and Renew paint plotting. I wrote down Catchings. We talked about him, right? Correct? Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
And there's a few others. Like St. John's, I was pretty fixated on. I know they were kind of a hot topic, and Ian Jackson and who's going to play point guard there. So I think overall you could maybe find I think unless Dylan Darling becomes their point guard, that could be weird to me. But you're right, Dylan Mitchell there. I think the fact that Patino figures out every year is probably not going to make me too concerned. But that was the one team where you could see there being some kind of stubbornness. St. John's and Cincy both stubbornness. You avoided shooting again. Why did you do that? That burned you last year. Maybe you should have done something more about that this year.
I don't know that St. John's avoided shooting.
Sorry, not St. John's actually tried to get shooting. They needed, I think, a clear point guard solution in the wake of
more
losing.
Ball movers.
Yes,
the assist rates are low from Sannon, from
non-existent.
Jackson.
Smith, I thought, was really a key bump for them. They needed Smith. They were best when Smith was good last season. But yeah, kind of your point, Cincy, just avoiding shooting again. Wes Miller starting to really sour in terms of stubbornness for me. I don't understand it. I don't.
Yep. I got a couple other smaller guards. I guess maybe not a couple. But Ryan Cornish is not a Big Ten player. He shouldn't be on USC. That was a silly waste of a late scholarship. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'm not big on Dean Thomas to LSU guys. He just kind of big minutes, but a little bit inefficient. Never really fully got that team to a winning level, and maybe there was some coaching involved in that too. I'm curious how he fares against SEC athleticism on a consistent basis. And speaking of that, Brandon Noel from Wright State to Ohio State, not on the athletic level of that conference, anchored the 335th best defense last year. I know he's not going to be their 5, but I worry about that.
I agree with that, Jim. I like that one.
Okay. And then last two bigs that I don't think belong in the SEC. Noah Williamson to Alabama. Weird fit as a guy that was just like a post scorer at Bucknell.
Get you a little bit.
And then little bit. And Chris Isandako, get off my TV, get out of my college basketball. I'm so sick of this guy. He's now headed to South Carolina. He's going to fool one more fan base into being excited and then massively flop and disappoint during the year.
I get it, man.
Sorry. Brandon,
Sorry,
I just remembered my last one. Brandon Walker. Brandon Walker, Mississippi State. I think he's terrible. He's not an SEC player. Thank you, Jimmy. Just
from Montana State.
Okay.
Montana State, not good.
Yeah, he's an individual stat guy. We'll say that. I don't think he's a
Him and Malik Renew are similar in that they're just like
that's
kind of like true post players and that they don't really do a lot else, and it's just tough when that's your MO. I just think you need big guys got to be able to do something else.
He's got a little bit of like he wasn't anywhere near as good at Montana, but great off support to him, like the big load who
Right.
power
Ground
conference level is
bound.
a 6'7" post guy. Like I don't know.
You got to be able to dribble and pass and do more unique things if you're going to be like undersized post player that can't shoot at the high level. You got to really be able to pass or
Hey,
drive.
he shot 40% from three and had 21% assist rate, but they just got like a lot better when they benched him at the end. That was the weird thing.
Chemistry
Can't play
questions.
defense. Can't play defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough.
All right, fellas. Good pod, long pod.
Oh, last one. Sorry,
Okay.
Quincy Ballard. I knew I had one more. Sorry, Quincy Ballard. I love Quincy Ballard. He's gonna be phenomenal
Good fit?
for Chris Chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
yeah,
all
yeah.
That's a
conference
good
guy.
one. Good one.
I
No,
debated putting him
not,
in good
not
fit.
even
I
close
thought you were
to
saying
conference,
Okay.
but yeah.
Sorry, there's a team I like I couldn't remember. I thought I had a couple takes on it. Mississippi State was kind of a polarizing one. Like Jay
Yeah, I
Epps,
guess
maybe
we
not.
dunked on
but
them with
like,
Epps. We can compliment
Yeah.
Ballard. That's fair.
Let's
Yeah.
pump the brakes
Okay,
on all
I'm done.
conference. He wasn't even all conference.
Yeah,
American.
there's 18 SEC teams. I don't think Quincy Ballard's
good
going to make
league,
the
too.
top 15 players.
Also, wasn't Ballard at Florida? Am I thinking wrong?
He was somewhere before Wichita. I can't remember.
Oh, it's Florida. Maybe not. Okay.
Florida State, maybe?
One review from S Tier Podcast. Well, S Tier Podcast. Here we go. As a fan of an AAC school, appreciate there's a great coverage across the entirety of D1 landscape. Keep up the great work. Excited to see how the pod continues. One question. With the evolution of NIL in recent years, do you think a school's location has any impact at all on recruiting anymore? For example, do UCLA and USC get any benefit from being in LA, or is it just about conference prestige and money at this point? I'd say,
I would take-
okay. Oh, then you go ahead, mister.
I think the West Coast teams have a little bit of you're in the West Coast and teams and players like to be on the West Coast. I think that does matter. I think you see like the Big
You're
West
from there
and
or
their
in general?
I just think you sort of there's probably a lot of good players that are from the West Coast that are keen on staying out west or closer to home, because there's such a big gap, obviously, in our country between the West Coast and the Midwest and the East. So there's a lot of good talent that stays out that way, and you're close to like some of the international guys from Australia, and I mean, like Big West, right? Like, just I think the talent they've been able to accumulate and keep out there, I think that matters. So I think partial agree with the review guy here. I think there's regional advantages.
I'll go a little the other way, and because of a recent example I just wrote, Wisconsin. Nick Boyd went from Boca Raton to San Diego to Madison. Like I don't
Hey, nice city.
That's an odd little. It's a cool city, but it's an odd journey in terms of like the city you perception of it. So that was I don't know. I think it's more about role and money's first.
Money first.
Role,
Yes.
conference, coach second, and geography filters way down. It's tough to make that a key portion of your pitch. Maybe it matters
Boyd's
for
cool. There's a good interview. His
income
dad,
tax.
or I think his dad played professionally. He had a good interview. He talked about how like he wanted to go all over. Like he like loves it. He got to go all over and recognizes he's probably not going to make a lot of money once this is all done. So wanted to.
I
different
wonder
experiences.
if income tax matters. It's talked about a lot with NBA contracts because they're way bigger, but like making $2 million at UNLV with no state income tax versus paying California state income tax,
Yep.
that
Yep.
might matter.
That's huge.
Oh, the almighty dollar. Okay. That does it for our podcast. Wow. Long one. We talked good. I liked it. We talked good.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you're off work, Kai. We
I know.
just can
Yeah.
go into the void.
Yes. Okay. Join us next week for another episode. I'm not really sure what the topic will be, but we will let you know, and we'll keep you up to date on if that's going to be Thursday or Friday in the morning. Till then, cheers. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's nice weather where you live. Goodbye.